Hello and welcome to another episode of Luna Live. I have a very special guest with me called Courtnee Downes. She has actually been in the military for the last 20 years.
20.
Yeah, and she's retired and is now entering civvy life and coming with all the ups and downs of that. So without further ado, I will pass you over to Courtnee to start. If you could share your story, and I'm sure we'll go down some rabbit holes.
Oh, definitely. Well, welcome. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be able to have a conversation with you and your audience. Well, I was like I was saying earlier, we were talking a little bit before this, but I joined the military, the United States Army at 17. And definitely was not something I expected to be a life, a career. I thought I would do 5 years and then that would be it.
Yeah, I
But
think
of
a lot of
course,
people have that with the military, don't they? They go like, I'll give it a go, and then they either
yeah,
like fly through it forever, or they're like, what have I done? Because you're stuck
yeah,
in a
yeah. Like,
contract.
it's like definitely like an ups and downs. Like if it's time to raise your hand again, you're like, am I having fun? Am I enjoying this? Do I have a plan? And when you're like, no, I don't have a plan, like I'm having a good time. You know what I mean? Like, so then you're like, okay, I'll do another 3 years. I'll not do another 4 years. I'll do another 5 years, whatever it
Yeah.
is. And you're just like, and then you're over 10 and you're like, I was like over 10 and I was like, yeah, I might as well just keep going.
Whatever. I've done 10
And I
now.
definitely do not regret it because now 20 years later, I don't, I'm not working. I'm just enjoying life and really, making up for a lot of lost time.
Yeah, that's good. What drew you to the military? Because I've always found that quite interesting, like what kind of characters are actually drawn to the military. Because obviously it's not like how it used to be where you're called upon and you have to go. Like
Right.
it's now it
Right.
is a choice, isn't it?
Well, a lot of my family members were in the military. My grandparents were in the military. My dad was in the military. My uncle was in the military. A couple of my aunts and uncles were in the military. So I kind of came from a military family. So when I first grew up, I remember my dad being in the reserves.
Okay.
And I remember seeing him in uniform. I remember going to like events and stuff like that. And so it was like, I think it was kind of in the back of my head, but it wasn't until I was in high school and I was like, okay, I need to figure out what I'm doing, and then my senior year in high school, the Marines brought in a program, which I don't know if you guys have it, but it's like junior ROTC. So it's like a period of your day you are in military classes. So
Okay. Oh yeah, they do have them here, like military schools. Like
yeah, but it's just like something you do in high school. It's just like a period of your time, like a regular class. And so I did that for the last year that I was in a senior in high school. And I was like, you know what? Like this is an option. Like I need to pick this as an option. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. Like my mom was always like, you should be a lawyer, you should be a judge, you should be a police officer, you should be all these things. And I'm just like, okay, like that's what you want me to be, but
yeah,
what do
your
I
mom wanted you to be authoritative, didn't she? You will be a strong
did. And
woman.
because she's worked in the courthouse, so she
Okay.
worked around lawyers and judges and police officers, so I think that's what she wanted to do. So I decided to join the military and I chose to be a law enforcement officer, not because I thought that's what I wanted to do, but it's like, okay, well, she thinks I'm going to like this and I'm not sure what I want to do. And I know I can, if I leave the military, I can still do this.
Yeah.
So that was my thought process. And so I did it and I actually really enjoyed it. And, through 20 years, you kind of grow and you evolve. And then I became really good at what I did. And so there was a sense of job satisfaction with that role as I progressed higher up, and the role kind of changed a little bit to just like a regular law enforcement officer to a criminal investigator, investigating like big crimes.
Yeah.
And then I just realized I loved what I did.
Yeah.
It was just exhausting.
Yeah, so that's what a lot of people I think don't realize. They think you go to the military and you're a soldier and that's it. And it's like, no, the military actually has its own, you have jobs inside the military. It's not just now I go to
You just,
war, you know.
yeah, you just go and hang out until you go to war. And, you know, when I
Mm,
joined, war wasn't war wasn't a thing. I
no.
was in the military a year when 9/11 happened, not even maybe like a year when 9/11
Wow.
happened. So when I went in, there was no, oh, we're already at war.
Mm,
It was not even a thought.
yeah, it was just, I'm just gonna join this
Yeah.
community, do my own thing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And see if I like it,
Yeah, yeah.
And so,
To
but yeah,
be fair, I think young is a really good time to, if you're gonna do military, I think you should do it young, like, because it really enforces kind of discipline,
mhm,
especially if you're a kid that can like struggles with that and stuff like that.
right.
But I think when people get a little bit older, sometimes it can have a bit more complicated to start joining
Yeah,
older.
because
I
you're
do think.
already stuck in your ways of doing
Mm,
things. You already have some kind of sense of independence and freedom as an adult,
mm,
where I started, which I did. It was just in a different sense. It was
yeah.
with boundaries, within limitations.
Mm. So did you like the whole like structure of military? Did you like the whole like discipline and stuff like that? You like having like someone tells you what to do, you do it, and then like
Right.
did you enjoy
Yeah,
that then?
I think that it helped. I think it helped me mentally. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like it kept me task oriented. It kept me on a track. Like I knew that, it's almost like, like when somebody says, you can't do something. And then you're
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, well, let me show you that I can.
That is
I
literally
think,
the military's advertisement, isn't it?
right. And
It's like
so
it's a
it's almost
mindset.
like, yeah, it's almost like, okay, as a woman in the military,
Mm,
it's a very small population, right? And so I think it pushed me to be more independent, to be more strong, to be more, to become a leader. And, even just becoming a woman in the military as a leader is a very difficult position to hold,
mm,
because there's lots of resistance, I would say. But it just allowed me to focus on what the next step was. Like, what
uh-huh.
did I have to do next to prove somebody wrong?
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. I like that
Yeah.
mindset. Whereas sometimes people are drawn to the military because they like, yes, they have that mindset where they want to hit goals, but sometimes it's the case that they just they just need a parent, and they kind of adopt military as their parent. Like,
Yeah.
okay, a lot of them have like absent fathers. I've found anyway. There's quite a
Mhm.
like correlation between like absent fathers and people drawn to the military, and
Mhm.
then it's kind of like they just like, oh, tell me what to do, tell me what to do. So I really like
Right.
the fact yours is kind of the other way, like, who can I prove wrong now?
Right. And it's good to know, like, okay, this is what I have to do
Uh-huh.
today. This is what I expect to do today. Like, just show up and do your job and do it well.
Mm.
And you get paid,
Yeah,
like it's, in most of the time, there's not, it's just like going to work,
yeah.
and you get paid, you know what I mean? Like, my education was free,
Mm.
my medical was free, like, all this stuff was free. My housing was free for the most part,
Yeah.
so it's like, I think that's great for people that don't know what they want to do
Oh,
and
for
don't have an
sure.
idea what they want to do. And that's kind of like, that helps me. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I needed to do something.
Hmm.
And I didn't expect to stay long. I expected maybe 4 or 5 years. And then that turned into 20 years, and so, like, the military definitely changed who I was and made me who I am today.
Yeah, yeah. Well, everyone, I've said this in the last podcast I did. I do honestly think everyone's put on the planet with a job, and they're put
Hmm.
kind of on the path that they're meant to be on.
Yep.
So clearly, military was obviously something that you were meant to do. But yeah, do you have any kind of stories inside the military that you feel like could have shaped you in any way? I mean, obviously, like boundaries in place. Like, obviously, you can
Yeah.
say what you want to say. Um, but yeah,
Um,
there
I don't
must
know.
have
I
been.
think I think that, so I think a lot of people, they, would imagine that with there being so little women in the military,
Hmm.
that women would stick together, and women would help each other rise.
Yeah.
Um, and for me, in my opinion, and I'm not going to put this on anybody else, is that was not the case for me.
Mm.
I felt like, the women in the military were very competitive. meaning
Okay.
like they weren't there to help lift you up and help teach you and mentor you and help you get through the hardships of being a woman
Yeah.
and the hardships of being in the military. And so I didn't have that. And
Mm.
so, once I became, a certain rank, that's, I guess that you guys probably call it the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I felt like I tried to be that for other people, and it
Mm-hmm.
was for other women. And it was very hard because they were like, that it's almost like a stigma, like
Mm.
this unspoken rule that women just don't support women. Like
Insane.
she's your competition. Like, stay away. Like, don't
But
help her.
but men in the military are all about, that's my brother. Do you know what I mean? That I know of anyway. They're all about, we're going to war together. I need to know you. I need to trust you. So it's
Yeah.
crazy that women aren't, on that set, because we're a lot more nurturing. So it's crazy that we're not doing that that
No.
you found anyway, that
Yeah.
didn't happen for you. So that must have felt quite lonely in
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but I obviously found that mentorship
mm,
in male leaders and males that that were older than me, or that wanted to be that person. But I think it was just a very sad reality for me. And
mm,
don't get me wrong, I definitely have women, especially later on in my career, I've met amazing women in the military. I have amazing women friends, but
mm-hmm.
they were never in a position to mentor me or lead me, if that
No.
makes sense.
No, they just kind of
So,
went along with you. It was never that they were
right,
kind of
like we
like,
were
yeah,
just friends, like me and you were friends and we talk
yeah,
every day, like that kind of friend. It
yeah,
wasn't somebody you work every single day with and you make decisions with, or
mm,
you know what I mean? So, in my experience, that was probably the biggest surprise to me.
yeah. Oh, that
So,
must have,
but I think that's like you said, that's kind of like what shaped me, is like having to figure it out on my own and having to, look elsewhere for that mentorship and that leadership, and just kind of like, and then trying to be that for other women.
yeah,
And there are women, I'm friends with some of them now, like, she was my soldier, and she would tell you right now, she's like, I heard you, I just didn't want to listen to you, I wanted to
mm,
figure it out on my own. And it wasn't because I didn't believe you, it was just like I was in that, they're young, they're in that mindset,
mm.
like, I'm just going to figure it out on my own. Sure, sure, you're probably right, but I'm going to figure it out on my own.
That's good though. In some ways, that's kind of what you want. Like, I think a lot of parents now do kind of, I mean, maybe not now, maybe kind of more the generation before. They do kind of like go, they know what they think, that they can like tell you exactly what to do, and and that they know your path and what path you should be on and everything like that. And then actually it's like, and then a lot of people go along with that because they're so they struggle to put in those own personal boundaries to go, actually that's not what I want to do. There are a
Yeah.
lot of people that just follow what their parents want them to do all the time, and then don't actually learn on their own. And then when they go into the big bad world, then they're like puppy dogs. So that's
Yeah.
that's in a way that's good that, like, your friends had that kind of.
And, I guess in my thought process was just like, let me try to help you from making the same mistakes I made,
Yeah,
you
just give you
know?
a little piggyback.
Yeah. That's kind of like what it was. Let me help you out. Let me give you a piggyback and make it a little easier for you. Not that it was more like advice, you know what I mean? Like, let me help guide you, because
Yeah.
you're gonna have the same idea that I had. And that's when the mistakes happen. That's when you're
Mm.
like, the failure happens.
Was there any crazy mistakes that happened when in your line of military?
I don't know. I don't know. I think relationships was really tough for me. Like, I
Oh
made a
yeah,
lot of
I
that.
didn't even think about that you'd actually have like relationships inside the military.
Yeah, I actually I think sorry, my dog had to go out.
That's all right. Mine's just here. He's just chilling. He keeps trying to go out the
Yeah.
door. I'm like, no, I'm not getting up now.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I made a lot of mistakes in relationships. I and I think that was just probably because, like, I don't know. I probably with lack of knowledge of what relationships are supposed to look like. Like I think, I'm sure you can relate to this, or like how men and women are supposed to treat each other in a relationship. And, I think my biggest, and I think I lost myself in a relationship. And I think that's when I realized that, probably almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Like I was married and I deployed, and I looked in the mirror one day and I said I had no idea who I was.
Really?
And I was like, who am I? Like, who is Courtnee? And I think that was my first like real huge turning point in my life. Is I just realized I did not know who I was, and I had lost myself in that relationship.
It's really scary, isn't it? It's really kind of like, where have I been? And that's what I was telling you earlier about inner child work. That's where you like actually connect with who you are. But it's like that horrible feeling when you look in the mirror and you're like, I don't know you. I really don't know you. It is really scary. So was he like an abusive guy, or was he just?
No, he was definitely not abusive. I think that we met very young. And so I didn't really like, I had never really, I would say like I wasn't like in high school and stuff. I didn't date people, like guys weren't my priority, doing well in school was. And so we met very young.
Yeah.
And we had a relationship off and on for many years before we got married. And I think I just became the person he wanted me to be.
Yeah.
And I think mostly it was subconsciously, like I became the person he wanted me to be in the hopes that he would love me more.
Yeah. Which is interesting, because you were also drawn to the military, in the sense that that's kind of what you have to do when you go into the military. You have to morph into what they expect of you and who they want you to be, in order to then like be a part of that community. They do kind of, people say they break your spirit. I'm not sure about that. But they do try and kind of, obviously, well, you've all got to be fairly similar, and you've all got to be thinking the same, so that you can all be there for each other. So it's interesting that may have just been that you were like someone that kind of chameleoned into
That's exactly what I call it.
Chameleoned into kind of modes to make sure that, like, it's almost like a survival instinct that we have, like, you just like go along with your tribe, and like we all kind of do the same thing. And then it's only when you take a step back that you're like, what on earth am I doing? Like, I'm not actually in a tribe here, like it's modern day. So that's an interesting kind of connection that him. So you were in a relationship with him whilst you were in the military as well?
Yes, we were both in the military.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's cool. So were you in like the same, I don't even know how it works.
Yeah, we were in the same unit for a lot of the time, or very close units. And then when we were in a unit together, I think that's when we struggled, because we worked together, we lived together, we ran out of things to talk about, and so I think that was a big struggle for us too, is just not living separate not having that outlet to go, you go do your thing, I'm going to go do my thing. We were very much connected at the hip. What is it that they say? You don't shit where you eat. Yeah, they say that a lot in the military. I should have listened. Yeah, but then the irony is, when they're in the field, they probably do shit where they eat. But no, I think and if somebody would ever ask me what's one of my like a failure that I'm most appreciative about, appreciative of, and I would probably say my marriage. Yeah, because my marriage failed, not because, I don't think because we didn't try. I think it was just that we wanted different things, and we were very different people. And it was what was best for you to just continue, like, you'd served your purpose together, and then you moved apart. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think it helped me, I think that defining moment of looking in the mirror and not realizing who I was anymore, and how I had changed myself to, to make him love me. or in the hopes that he would love me more, right?
Yeah.
And I realized that I didn't know who I was, and that it was time that we went our separate ways, and that I started to figure out who I was.
Yeah, and in reality, you can't ever, make someone love you, but we all try and do it, don't we? We all try and morph into like their ideal in the hope that, I mean, some people know that they're doing it, but most of the time we don't. We just want to be like who they are, who they want us to be, or who we expect they want.
Yes.
And so your marriage broke down, and then what happened after that then? Because you got
So
another 10 years in the military from then, wasn't it? Still.
yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I actually, like, I was at that point, I had a huge change in my military career. And that basically was, I was changing, I was actually so you might understand or not, I was an enlisted soldier, and I was changing over to become a specialty, like a more specialty officer.
Right. Yeah.
We call them a warrant officer. And so
Okay.
I was switching over at that time. And I was switching over at that time. So it allowed me to, like, I was making drastic changes in my personal life and in my professional life. And so it kind of gave me the opportunity to kind of just start over and start fresh someplace else. And so that's what I did. And I ended up not long after that getting into another long-term relationship, which was better, but it ended up ending too last year.
Yeah.
But it was, I think, a lot of people think, if you ask somebody if they have regrets, I think a lot of people would probably say yes, like, I regret this. For me, I don't have regrets.
No, that's all lessons, and you've clearly got a very good head on you with that, because a lot of people do go, like, I know you said like my marriage failed, but it's like, did it fail? It didn't fail. It just, because it just like served its purpose and you moved on. And then you get in another relationship, it serves its purpose, you move on, like that's a really very, very strong mindset that you've got, because a lot of people really struggle with it. It's a lot of what my work I've ended up helping people with, because they go like, it's failed. And I did exactly the same thing. Like, how ridiculous is this? I was like 20, 21, and I was like, and like my ex just kept cheating on me, and I was like, yeah, but I can't leave because I'm past it. Like, at 21, like, really? But it was the fact that my mum had met my dad at 18, my brother had met his wife at 18. That was like, well, I'm past it now. I failed. That's it. No more. This is either now or never. It's ridiculous when you think about it, but it's like, and that was the head that I had on me, and now it's very much like, this heck. My dog just chasing his tail. It's very much like, these things happen. It's not a failure. It's a lesson. It
served its purpose. It had a purpose, and you learned something from it. You learned something about yourself. You learned something about relationships. You learned something about other people.
And it's also how we like adapt in life is through other people. We're social, right? Like, human beings are social. So that's how we kind of like, we play with this person, that didn't work out, we'll play with this person. Like, if you put like adulthood into child form, that's exactly what you do. Obviously theirs is like quite compressed in their little childlike life, but as adults, it's what we continue to do. They're just playful, becomes a bit more serious. But yeah, that's cool. It's good that you've got that head on you. That's so, since you've obviously you've broken up with that bloke, and then it just didn't work, I guess. It just didn't, you didn't click. And then so you've been out of how long have you been out of the military now?
Just a little over a year.
Yeah, so you'd split up just after you'd come out of the military, was it?
Actually, before we split up before I retired. So I'll probably a year and a half ago. Yeah.
So
but I mean, I think we too wanted very different things in life. Like, we just had different ideas of what we wanted. And I think, I don't you talk about transformation, you're a transformation coach, I'm kind of like a self-discovery coach, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's probably a lot more similarities than differences between what
for
we
sure,
do, right?
yeah.
And people, when I talk about self-discovery, like I don't expect people to think that it's something that happens overnight.
Oh, good.
Like
No.
Self-discovery is a very lifelong, process. And some people just started very late on their journey when they realize, they no longer know who they are. I was almost 30 and didn't, I think I was 30 when I realized I have no idea who I was.
Yeah, I think there is science in it. I think there's a certain part of your brain that is fully developed at 25, but then most people don't actually start kind of being a little more self-aware until 27. And then like, so that kind of like between 27 and 35 tends to be the average when people really kind of like, and there is science in it, but I don't know the science. But
but it's most likely because you're like, okay, what you want at 18, 20, 21 is very different to what you want when you're 30.
Oh, for sure.
You've gone through all those ebbs and flows of relationships and life, and now what you wanted then is definitely different than what you want now. And I think those relationships and those friendships and just those life experiences help you narrow down the list of what you want, what's a non-negotiable and what you're not willing to settle for.
I like the fact you've used non-negotiables. I always use those. I'm like, right, we're deciding your non-negotiables, and it's the same in relationships. Like people go, well, is it okay that they did this? Is that okay? Should I leave them for that? And it's like, well, you decide your non-negotiables. Some people are swingers. Some people don't care if people are off sleeping with every Tom, Dick, and Harry. That's they're negotiable on that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Then they're not okay if they, I don't know, like texting someone. That's their non-negotiable, and everyone has their own non-negotiable, their own boundaries, stuff like that. So, that's cool. So whereabouts are you at now then? So we need to hear what you're doing now.
So after I retired last year, I moved from Texas to Florida. So I'm living in South Florida now. I am retired, so I don't have a 9 to 5. Or your typical 9 to 5.
You will never have a 9 to 5.
I will probably never.
You have been in the military for 20 years. You will never have a 9 to 5. That will be way too that's boring for me. You're not going to be doing that.
So I do have a podcast with my best friend who's also a military veteran. And that podcast is the Fearlessly Inspired podcast. You can pretty much find that on Google or Apple or Spotify. And I have been starting kind of like self-discovery, like mentorship coaching for women. I do that. I teach a class. I try to teach a class every other month for women.
Is it like an online class or is it an in-person class?
It's actually a Zoom class.
Okay,
so
cool.
We do exactly, we just jump on Zoom and we have a very intimate, we meet once a week for 4 weeks. And so we do that. It's about self-discovery, discovering you. And then I also do some speaking and training with a group called the Difference Makers. They're basically a bunch of advocates and victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, human trafficking. And so I do some training and speaking for them too, with mostly the military community.
Well, I hope you don't mind me asking, and by all means tell me to like go. Be like, no, I'm not telling you. But is there a reason you're drawn to that kind of service? Is it something that has ever happened to you, or was it something that you saw a lot of in the military, or is it,
I think I have had like some incidences that have happened to me, but they're not something that I speak personally about.
No.
But fine. I don't know. I think that once I first started doing more investigations, I think just my ability to conversate with victims of sexual abuse and domestic violence, I guess it just I think it takes a certain kind of person to know how to speak to a victim.
Yeah, you have to be very empathetic. You have to be a real empath, which I imagine there's lacking quite a lot of in the military. So you're probably quite a you were quite a good kind of really good at your role in that sense then.
Yes. And I saw people, and it's not their fault by no means, but I saw a lot of people doing a really bad job at talking to victims and survivors. And I was like, okay, there has to be a better option, because you don't, when you're in that position, you don't want to talk to somebody who makes you feel like you've done something wrong.
Hey, you should talk to the British police. Honestly, I'm a survivor of domestic abuse and sexual assault, and some of the officers, man, they don't know how to talk to you. Like, I'm fine now. I'll talk about my story to anyone, and I'll, like I almost kind of like, it's so shrugged off now because I've gone through my own healing from it. But it's like some of the officers, they talk to you and like they just don't know how to actually discuss it with you, and you're just like, really, like I had an incident where I had an officer came around my house to take a statement. It was just that like someone had contacted me that wasn't meant to contact me, so I had to, like, it's all a bit ongoing at the moment, so I'm not allowed to talk about it too much, but it was so they were coming around to take a statement, and they walk in the house, and like I had literally, bear in mind I was a single mum, I ran a business like from home, and I was taking my son to nursery, had to rush around, get back for the police, and like as I was rushing around in the morning, I knocked over some dishwasher salt that went on the floor, but it was like, okay, whatever, I got to get the kids in the car, blah, 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 go here, there, and everywhere. I came back, literally just got through the door, and the car pulled up. She came in and she was like, obviously going to take a statement and everything. And she walked in and she was like, I had the two dogs at that point. And I said, I've put the dogs in the garden because obviously I don't want them jumping all over you, getting your uniform hairy. And she went, they have no food and water, like looked at the bowl. And I was like, well, they're outside. I've given them water outside and I'll top up their food when they come in. And she was like, well, we may as well just do it now. I was like, right, okay. So
so
like,
weird,
I was
so random.
I know, but it was just like, I was then like on edge, like, okay, when you expect a police officer coming into your home and you're the victim, you don't expect to be interrogated, and you expect to
for
kind of like,
silly.
Yeah, feel safe. And then she kind of looked into because I was like, okay, so I went into the kitchen to get the dog's food. And then she was like, this dishwasher salt on the floor. I was like, yeah, I knocked that over just before I like rushed my son to nursery and then came back. And she was like, okay, well, that's not exactly safe for a child. I was like, well, he's not here. He's at nursery. It happened as I was getting him ready for nursery. And then anyway, she came down, she sat down, and then like we were chatting through, going through statement and everything. And then she was like, as we were leaving, she was like, did you know that we always do a report to social services on the state of your home? And I was like, okay, but it's not unsafe. Do you know what I mean? There was no knives everywhere. It was relatively clean. It was just, I was a single mom working. So I was like, yeah. So it was like, there was clutter. Like, there's clutter here. I've got 2 kids now and the dog, but I'm not a single mom. And they were like, as she was leaving, she went, yeah, we do a report, right? And I was like, okay, what are you trying to say? Like, what are you getting at? And she was like, well, I won't do one this time, but make sure your house is clean next time. And I was like, you've literally just come to my house to take a statement because I'm a bit shook up because someone has contacted me that's not meant to contact me. And
it just made me feel like environment. Yeah, it just sets the environment in like the feeling for, for the conversation, and how are you going to want to, how is a victim of any crime going to want to talk to somebody that just walked into their house and judge that person by their dogs or how their house looks? If you're gonna judge me for not feeding my dogs, or the dog not having food, or there being soap on the floor, how else are you going to judge me?
I know, that was it.
Are you going to judge my truth in the fullness?
Yeah. And she said some weird stuff as well. Like, she was like, that eventually they will be allowed to have contact and stuff like that. And then when I flagged it up with another officer, because I was like, surely that's not correct. Like, I'm really I've felt like absolute arse for ages after. I was just like, I feel like I'm the one in trouble now, and I've literally done nothing wrong. And then I put in a formal complaint, nothing came back from it. But I did speak to another officer, and they were like, yeah, yes, we do a report every time we go around someone's house, but it's only if it's unsafe and if the child is there as well. Like
Right.
if the child was there and there was glass all over the floor, yes, that's a concern. As a mum, you should want to be clearing that up. But it was like he's not even there. He's at nursery that you're paying for, like
Yeah.
so that you can work to pay for his home and this, that, and the other. But some people really don't. I mean, that might be an idea for you if you ever find that you want to find something else to do, to put together a course for like officers to like learn
I
to.
mean, I have thought about that. I mean,
Mm,
there's definitely a need, but I think the problem with that is a lot of departments I'm not sure if they're there yet.
mm,
Like making, making a victim, want to feel more comfortable, wanting to change how you approach a victim so you don't re-victimize them.
mm.
It's all about, interview techniques. It's about open-ended questions. It's about, having empathy or pretending that you have empathy. And a lot of
Yeah,
people can't, people can't do that.
no, no,
They
this is,
can't fake empathy. And, not that it should be faked, but I think
I
women are just more empathetic individuals.
yeah, well, we're nurturers, aren't we? We are
Yeah.
more, but every officer I've dealt with has been female, and like some of them have been all right, but some of them have been just like, what are you doing? But
Yeah.
I think maybe it's partially because you have to emotionally disconnect so that it doesn't absolutely destroy you. Is that something that you had to do at all? Like, because if
Oh,
you really emotionally connect with someone and you like befriend them almost, surely that would destroy you. Like you'd be sitting there like, I can't bear the idea that she's might possibly be going back to that bloke that hits her or that.
yeah, you
Uh,
definitely have to set boundaries, at least
mm,
mentally and emotionally for yourself. But I think it's just difficult for me. It was just very difficult to just hear and I think that's kind of why I decided to retire, is because
mm,
you can only take so much of hearing about everybody's worst day of their life every single
mm,
day.
mm,
And it's a very emotionally taxing job,
mm,
especially when you're really want to do it well, and you really want to talk to victims and survivors, and you really want to make them feel so at ease that they can tell you the hardest parts or the worst
mm.
parts or the parts that they don't even want to say out loud.
It must normalize some crazy stuff as well. Like if you're every day in and day out hearing about, like you said, everybody's worst day, it must be like, you watch it on the telly and it's like, oh yeah, that happened at work the other day. Like what? And that's
Yeah.
like a world that other people don't even know about or have
Mhm.
never, touch wood, luckily experienced. So
Yeah.
it must normalize, and the military on top of that as well. Like just in general, military
Yeah.
life does normalize like being shouted at and stuff like that. When when I went to
Right.
family day at my other half, he was in a Royal Marine recruit, and they're like, and he'd tell me stories of like how they'd like shouted in his face like, "Have you got anything fucking about you?" And I was like, "Oh, I would cry." I'd literally be like, "Do you need to shout at me? Like, we have other things we need to be getting on with."
Yeah.
You need to like just scream at me. But they
Yeah.
just it's just normal though, isn't it? It's just like
Mhm.
how you get spoken to. And
Yeah, initially, yes.
yeah, is that part of their kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I don't even
Corporal.
can't think of the word, like getting you into a certain role, you know what I
Aha.
mean? So it's not like that forever.
No, all right, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess once you're actually in that, well, I think initially you become kind of the bitch of the military, don't you? Then when you're
Yes.
first in there, then they're
Yes.
like, right, you do all the shit jobs now. You
Yep.
just like everyone's well chuffed. I've like gotten through it. I've got my beret, everything, and then they're like, oh right, now I'm like bottom of the pile. But then you move
Yeah.
up at it, and
And then somebody else comes in that's lower in the pile.
yeah,
So
and you're like,
you're like,
haha.
oh, I've graduated from toilets to
Did
mopping the floor.
did people ever get like judgmental in the military about what like hierarchy you are? Because like I mean, this is obviously a while ago. My uncle was he was a corporal. He was a no, he was a PTI. I don't know what that like the fitness ones. Yeah. The
Okay.
the like the gym guys.
Yeah, physical
And
fitness. Yeah.
that's the one. And then he my auntie was seeing someone that was quite high up in the Navy. She was also in the Navy, and my granddad was in the Navy. So my granddad really like respected the fact that she was with this guy that was like really high up in the Navy. And then he was like having affairs and like not treating her very well. And then she ended up leaving him for my uncle, who's obviously still my uncle, and who was obviously PTI, so a lot lower down in like the ranking than this bloke was. And like my granddad was so unimpressed. He didn't talk to her for like 6 years or something, because it was just like, how dare you leave this man that is high ranking for this like just fitness guy, like just the gym person.
I mean, I think there's always, like, I think your grandfather's probably like, he's older, he's from a different generation.
Oh, he's 92 now. Yeah.
Yeah. So he definitely is like, oh, you need to date the best of the best, you know? You can't downgrade.
No, I know. And tattoos meant you'd been to prison. Like literally, I still wear long sleeves to see my granddad. I'm like, no,
I better wear them too.
Yeah, no. we all go when we all go see Papa. We'll go, we'll go wear our long sleeves. But yeah, that was the same. Like my uncle had tattoos and was lower ranking. So what on earth? But yeah, I don't think that's too bad now. I don't think that's as much of a deal now. But no, that's cool. So yeah, you've said where we can find you, haven't you? You've written it on you got it on here. So what are you doing now about you said earlier before when we started talking, you said about how you did some marketing, was it? Or
oh yeah, for a while there I did I was dabbling for probably about 3 or 4 years into network marketing. And so, that definitely helped me. I did that before I left the military. And so that really helped me transition into a more civilian mindset. And it helped me really create, I think it helped me realize what my real purpose was. And that was helping women.
Yeah. Well, you clearly obviously had that purpose throughout military life. That's really cool. You almost gave yourself that role anyway amongst your kind of policing role.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So that obviously helped you with that. Do you ever find that you get any kind of like, not flashbacks, but do you ever find that like now you're in civilian life, you're like that you ever kind of get things in and you wake up and you're like, oh yeah, I'm not in the military anymore, or like something happens, you're like, oh no, I don't need to react to that, or anything like that?
Well, I do suffer from PTSD. So I think how I react to certain things is probably would seem weird to other people. Like, I guess I'm still very, I would say hyper vigilant when I'm around other people. Cause I think you just expect things to happen.
Yeah.
Or you want to be prepared for things to happen before they happen.
Well, and that's it. I don't know if it's the same in American military. What do they call it? Hurry up and wait. Do they say that?
They do say that in the military, but for kind of a different purpose. But yeah.
Oh, I thought it meant the same kind of thing. Like you've always got to be ready. Like you've always just.
So in the military, it means like for us in the military, hurry up and wait means like hurry up and get where you're going.
Yeah.
So you can wait forever to get started.
Oh, okay. That does make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, oh, get here. And you're going to do this. And then you wait for like 2 hours to actually do that. Literally
stand around, don't you, as well? Like
that's exactly
just
what
stand there.
Hurry up and wait. That's what they teach you to do.
Okay. Because they said it to us, like with the whole COVID thing, they said to us, like, because we kept saying, like, are they leaving? Are they coming out? Because he was in obviously training. And we were going, are they coming out of training? Are they staying in? Like, we don't know what's going on. And they were like, we're going to tell you what we tell them. You need to hurry up and wait.
Yeah, that's like, exactly what it means. Like, just
no
wait.
one knows what this means.
Learn how to be patient and just wait.
That's crazy. Yeah. But yeah, so you suffer from PTSD. Is there anything like in particular that makes that you can think of? Because obviously it's like
like I hate to be in a passenger in a vehicle that with a bad driver. That gives me severe anxiety.
Yeah.
Just kind of like being in crowded areas around people that I don't know. I think I'm just very hyper vigilant. While driving, especially like when I was in the military, we drove around like Iraq, praying every day that, your vehicle wouldn't get blown up, or looking at everything on the side of the road, and so I think driving is very hyper vigilant experience for me. I'm always very aware for the most part, or try to be very aware. So driving is very sometimes difficult for me.
So you get you get all your steps in. You walk everywhere.
No, I do drive everywhere, but I do like to walk too. It's just I like to be I like to be the one driving.
Like to be in control of the situation, and then you know that like if you need to react, you're ready to react.
Yes. Where somebody else wouldn't have having that quick reaction. So
no. Well,
but, different things, but that is probably one of the daily things that is just difficult.
It's going to be ingrained in you. You'll have like a million what are they called, micro triggers. It was something my therapist taught me. Like so in like an example of like a toxic relationship, if you were like with a guy that was always calling you fat, and then you were like in Starbucks and you'd go, I want like the big sugary frappuccino, and they look at you like, do you need that kind of thing?
That would be something similar.
And then you go into a new relationship, and then you go and you order a frappuccino, and then like your boyfriend just looks at you, and you're like, oh right, you mean I'm fat then? Great, won't have it. And it's like and that's not what they mean at all. It means that they're actually going, oh, actually I might have that. But it's a micro trigger that's kind of like gone into your brain that makes you think like that like a certain look, a certain sound, or whatever means a certain thing. So I imagine you've probably got quite a lot of them, but you've got a very strong head on you. I'm very kind of like impressed by by how strong a head you've got, because a lot of people that the military does break them, and then a lot of people come out of the military as like alcoholics and stuff like that because they have to deal with it, and you've just gone, fuck that, I'm going head first into business and helping women and stuff like that.
Well, I think there is a stigma, even in the civilian world, with people that have PTSD, even as a victim of domestic violence and sexual assault. There's a stigma that surrounds having that PTSD, and I think that because there's that stigma, people don't think that it's safe for them to get help, or they don't want other people to know they're getting help. And so I've never been an advocate of not seeking help. And so I have always like, okay, there's something wrong. I don't want to say wrong with me, but there's something I have to deal with. Like, let me find how to cope with it and how to deal with it so I can continue living my life and not go back, go into drugs or alcohol or
that's
go
strength.
to something.
That's real strength though. That's like, the amount of people that I've said you need help with this or whatever, and they go, no, I've not had it as bad as other people. And it's like, okay, one, if I pinch myself and you pinch yourself, how does anyone know who's more hurt, really?
Right,
like,
exactly.
Like, no one knows. You who've been brought up who you are, and me who's been brought up who I am, who's to know what certain situations are gonna like feel worse? So you can't really measure in that sense anyway.
No, absolutely not. And I think a lot of people do that. They do. Like a lot of survivors and victims don't tell their story. It's because they say, well, mine wasn't as bad as this girl who has, or this guy who has told their story. So it's not comparable. So I'm not going to tell my story.
And I bet you got that a lot actually in what you were doing, and that people would go, well, you didn't actually have sex with me, so it's not that bad, is it? So I don't, and it's like, it's
the justification that they say in their own head. That's what they are trying to minimize it. So it doesn't seem as bad.
Yeah. Or if the one that everyone always says is like, well, he didn't actually hit me. And it's like, do you know how much easier? And I'm not comparing, obviously being hit, the actual like physical pain of it is the minor part of that. That's like the minimum kind of like the quickest thing to heal, really. It's the emotional part of it. So it's like if someone's abused you emotionally, but then someone's been hit, like people always say like, well, yeah, but he never hit me, it's like, yeah, I guarantee the
Yeah,
scars.
and that's why women and men, we'll say both, stay in abusive relationships or toxic relationships for so long.
Yeah,
is because they literally like, well, he hasn't hit me, even though he emotionally degrades me or emotionally abusive to me. He hasn't hit me, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, and it's like, what heals quicker, a bruise, or like mental battering, like, really. Exactly. It's like, you know, and that's what I mean. It's like, I don't want that to then sound like I'm saying that if people are hit, that's less hard, but it's actually the thing to heal from that takes longer is being hit. And it's the same like if your parents do and stuff like that. Like my mum used to always say to me like, yeah, but my dad used to beat the shit out of me, so it's not that bad, like what I do to you. And it's like, what? Like, it's not, it is.
Then we don't even realize, but you know, when people say stuff that to you like that, I'm not saying, maybe you could, the question for you is because she told you that, how did that condition you to stay in relationships that you should allow?
For sure. Like that was the thing. It was always like that was my only non-negotiable. If they hit me, I'll leave. That was my only non-negotiable. And it was like that.
So you probably took a lot of bull crap.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Outside of being physically abused.
I've been cheated on more times than I can count. But it's like, yeah, because it was like, well, you know, that's the standard, isn't it? And your parents do set that kind of bar. They do set that kind of standard. It's where it all ends up going back to. But yeah, so you're currently helping women to what is it, to find themselves, was it
it's like a self-discovery journey, a self-discovery mentorship.
So if anyone wanted to do that, if anyone felt that they wanted some help to go through self-discovery, then they could reach out to you. And so obviously you've got your podcast, and then where else is it? If you've got
I actually have a website, which cool. It's about to be under construction because I'm about to switch platforms, but the address will be www.courtneecdownes.com, and I'm sure you can put it in the notes. That way it's easier to find it because my name is spelled a little bit different.
Courtnee, N-E-E, isn't it? Yes. I like it. It's cute. Awesome. So, well,
they'll be able to find how to join the wait list there.
Cool. Awesome.
Or just how to connect to me personally. And then
I mean, are you someone that doesn't mind getting messages on like Instagram? Are you on Instagram? So you don't mind if people want to like chat to you about something, if someone's had a similar story and stuff like that, you don't mind if anyone dropped you a message?
No, absolutely not.
Beautiful. Well, it has been absolutely lovely talking to you, Courtnee, and I will wrap things up now. But have a lovely, what time is it where you are now?
5:11 p.m.
You've still got a load of the day left. I'm about to eat some chocolate and watch a murder documentary or something. Then it's my bedtime. Yes. Fabulous. Well, it's been lovely speaking to you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.